9 hikers were asleep inside this tent when something triggered an immediate, synchronized flight. They didn't unzip the door. They took knives, slashed the canvas open from the inside, and ran directly into a negative 30-degree blizzard. Several were wearing only socks. One was barefoot. These were not amateurs. The group, led by 23-year-old engineering student Igor Dyatlov, held advanced ski touring certifications. Every member in this photograph had trained for years to handle the extreme conditions of the Soviet wilderness. They knew exactly how quickly a body shuts down when exposed to sub-zero temperatures. They had deliberately chosen a route rated at the highest difficulty grade by the Soviet Hiking Federation. By February 1, 1959, they were setting up camp on the exposed slope of Kalatsiak. In the language of the local Mansi people, the name means dead mountain. When the group failed to send a scheduled telegram, a search party spent 2 weeks battling harsh weather to reach their last known location. On February 26th, they finally located the camp. The tent was still standing, half buried in snow, with the group's boots, their heavy coats, and vital supplies sitting untouched inside. Seasoned mountaineers do not abandon their survival gear in a blizzard by mistake. To leave a secured shelter half-dressed in those temperatures requires a threat so immediate that freezing to death becomes the secondary concern. Their actions point to a desperate flight from a danger they believed was about to destroy the tent itself. Investigators found a trail of footprints leading away from the tent and down toward a tree line more than a kilometer away. The impressions were unmistakable, bare feet and thin socks pressing into the frozen crust. The first bodies were found near the remains of a small fire beneath a large cedar tree, dead from hypothermia. But the 4 bodies discovered months later in a nearby ravine shifted the investigation into far more complex territory. These hikers hadn't just frozen, they had sustained massive internal injuries. 2 had suffered severe chest fractures, and another a fractured skull, trauma usually associated with a high-speed car accident. The contradiction was in the skin. Despite the shattered bones underneath, the victims showed no external bruising or soft tissue damage. Whatever crushed their ribs applied a massive, uniform weight without leaving the marks a human attacker or a weapon would leave behind. Then there were the grisly biological anomalies. One woman was found missing her tongue, parts of her lips, and her eyebrows. 2 of the other hikers were missing their eyes. Finally, laboratory tests performed on the group's recovered clothing returned positive results for elevated levels of radioactive contamination. As the rocket ignites, faced with inexplicable trauma and radioactive traces, the Soviet government abruptly closed the case in May 1959. The official report blamed a compelling unknown force, and the files were classified. This lack of transparency created a vacuum that, for 60 years, has been filled by theories of secret weapons and government cover-ups. In 2021, researchers from Switzerland's EPFL and ETH Zurich published a peer-reviewed study that utilized modern computer simulations to test a specific physical explanation for the group's injuries. This model illustrates a slab avalanche. Unlike the massive cascades seen in movies, a slab avalanche occurs when a localized, incredibly dense block of wind-packed snow shears off and slides down as a single, heavy unit. Most experts dismissed avalanches because the slope was too shallow, but the researchers proved that by cutting into the snowbank to pitch their tent, the hikers inadvertently created a structural weakness. Combined with intense winds depositing heavy snow above them, the slope became a hair trigger for a localized collapse. To measure what that weight would do to a human, the researchers used decades-old General Motors crash test data. This data was originally gathered using cadavers to understand how the human chest reacts to the blunt force of a steering column impact. As these force vectors show, when a heavy snow slab falls onto a sleeping person pinned against a rigid surface, like the skis they had used to floor the tent, the pressure is immense. The GM data confirmed that this exact type of compression replicates internal fractures while leaving the skin unbruised. This suggests a natural event was capable of generating the exact localized force that had puzzled investigators since 1959. With the trauma explained by physics, we have to look at biology to understand the state of the remains in the ravine. Those bodies sat in a wet environment for over 2 months before they were discovered. In the wild, soft tissues like tongues, eyes, and lips are the first parts targeted by scavengers and predators. Their absence was a result of natural decay and wildlife, not a ritual or an attack. This brings us to the radiation found on their clothing, a detail that fueled decades of speculation. In 1957, 2 years before the hike, a massive nuclear accident called the Kishtim disaster occurred at a nearby plutonium plant, contaminating a huge portion of the region. Records show that at least one member of the Dyatlov group lived in that contaminated zone, and another had worked on the cleanup. The radiation wasn't from the mountain, they had carried it with them from their homes. By examining documented history and post-mortem biology, the most sensationalized details of the case are replaced by tragic, earthly realities. We can now reconstruct their final moments. In the pitch black of a blizzard, the snow slab above the tent collapsed, killing several hikers and causing immediate, cataclysmic injuries. They were trapped, suffocating, and hearing the mountain shift above them. Fearing a second, larger slide was coming, they slashed their way out of the wreckage. Despite their own shock, the survivors helped their severely injured companions down the slope toward the trees, desperate to find shelter from the wind. But without their boots or heavy coats, the rescue was impossible. The hikers with internal trauma died within hours, and the rest succumbed to the cold while trying to build a fire they could no longer feel. The Dyatlov Pass Incident shows the power of modern forensic modeling to provide logic to events that seem impossible. We no longer need to rely on the supernatural to explain the devastation found on that slope. Science has provided a rational model that accounts for the trauma and the timeline. But because the original Soviet investigation was so deeply compromised by secrecy, Kholat Syakh will likely always be a place where the facts are chased by a lingering sense of mystery.